My husband came home smelling like my perfume, but I hadn't worn it in months. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I never thought I'd be the woman writing this kind of story. I always believed that my marriage was different, that we were different. For 12 years, I thought I knew my husband better than anyone else in the world. I was wrong. Let me start from the beginning, back when things were still good. Back when I still trusted the man I shared my life with. Mark and I met in our mid-20s at a mutual friend's birthday party. He was charming in that understated way. Not the loudest person in the room, but the one who made you feel like you were the only person worth talking to. We bonded over terrible karaoke choices and a shared love of old movies. Within 6 months, we were living together. Within 2 years, we were married. Our life together fell into a comfortable rhythm. We weren't the couple that went skydiving every weekend or traveled to exotic locations, but we had our rituals, our small traditions that made our marriage ours. Every Sunday morning, Mark would wake up early and make pancakes while I stayed in bed reading. He'd bring me a plate with way too much syrup, exactly how I liked it, and we'd eat together while watching whatever cooking show was on. Tuesday nights were always at Romano's, this little Italian place 3 blocks from our apartment. We'd been going there so long that Maria, the owner, didn't even ask for our order anymore. She just brought Mark his usual carbonara and me my margarita pizza with extra basil. We'd split a bottle of cheap red wine and talk about everything and nothing. He'd tell me about the frustrating client at his architecture firm who kept changing their mind about the design. I'd complain about my boss at the marketing agency who took credit for my ideas. We'd laugh about our weird neighbor who collected garden gnomes. We'd plan theoretical vacations we probably wouldn't take. Mark had this habit of reaching across the table and playing with my wedding ring while we talked, twisting it gently around my finger. It was such a small gesture, but it always made me feel anchored, chosen, loved. I remember the night he first complimented my perfume. It was our 3rd anniversary, and I'd bought something new, something special. Chanel No. 5, classic and expensive, a little indulgence I'd saved up for. When I came out of the bedroom ready for our dinner reservation, he stopped mid-sentence, pulled me close, and breathed in deeply at my neck. "God, that smells incredible on you," he'd said, his voice low. "What is it?" "Chanel No. 5, I'd answered, feeling pleased with myself. "Do you really like it?" "I love it. It's so you. Elegant, timeless." He kissed my temple. "You should wear this every day." And so I did. For years, that perfume became my signature scent. I wore it to work, to dinners, to parties. Mark would sometimes bury his face in my neck when we hugged and tell me I smelled like home. I kept a bottle on my dresser, another in my purse, a travel size in my gym bag. It became part of who I was, at least in his eyes. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Whose is? We had our arguments, usually about stupid things. He'd leave wet towels on the bed. I'd forget to pay the electric bill on time. He thought I spent too much time on my phone. I thought he spent too much time at the office. But we always talked it out. We always came back to each other. That was our thing. Communication, honesty, trust, or at least I thought it was. The changes started small, so small I almost didn't notice them. Looking back now, I can see the pattern clearly, like one of those magic eye pictures where once you see the hidden image, you can't unsee it. But at the time, each change seemed explainable, reasonable, just life being life. It started about 8 months ago. Mark's firm landed a huge commercial project, some downtown development that was supposed to be his big break, the thing that would finally make him a partner. He started staying late at the office. At first, it was just an hour or 2 extra, then 3. Then sometimes he wouldn't come home until after 10. He'd arrive exhausted, kiss me distractedly on the forehead, grab leftovers from the fridge, and collapse on the couch. "How was your day?" I'd ask. "Long, draining, don't want to talk about it." He'd scroll through his phone while eating, barely looking up. I told myself this was normal. Big projects meant long hours. I'd been there myself. So I gave him space. I made sure dinner was ready when he got home. I didn't complain when our Tuesday nights at Romano's became every other Tuesday, then once a month, then not at all. "We'll go back when things calm down," he promised. I miss it too. But things never calmed down. There was always another deadline, another crisis, another reason he couldn't make it home for dinner. The physical distance came next. Mark had always been affectionate, the kind of man who'd pull me into his lap while we watched TV, who'd run his fingers through my hair while we talked, who'd reach for my hand automatically when we walked down the street. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, that stopped. In bed, we went from making love several times a week to once a week, to once every 2 weeks, to hardly at all. When I'd try to initiate, he'd claim he was too tired, too stressed, too distracted. He'd kiss me quickly and roll over, already half asleep or pretending to be. "Is everything okay?" I asked him one night after another rejection. "With us, I mean." "Everything's fine, I'm just exhausted. This project is killing me." He squeezed my hand. "Once it's done, things will go back to normal, I promise." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. So I did. But then came the phone. Mark had never been secretive about his phone before. It would sit on the coffee table, on the kitchen counter, face up, charging overnight on his nightstand. I knew his passcode. He knew mine. We'd sometimes use each other's phones if one of ours was dead or in another room. It wasn't a big deal. Until it was. I first noticed it on a Saturday morning about 5 months ago. I was in the kitchen making coffee when his phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a text notification. I didn't try to read it, but I saw him appear in the doorway with a speed that seemed strange, almost frantic. "I'll take that," he said, snatching up the phone before I could say anything. "I wasn't looking," I said, confused by his tone. "I know, sorry, just work stuff, confidential." He typed something quickly, his body angled away from me, then slipped the phone into his pocket. After that, the phone never left his side. He started taking it to the bathroom. He'd turn it face down when he set it anywhere. He changed his passcode, something he explained away by saying his firm had new security protocols. He'd step out onto the balcony to take calls, even though he used to talk to clients and colleagues right in front of me. One evening, I walked into the living room and saw him quickly close something on his phone, switching to a different app in that guilty way people do when they're hiding something. "What was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Nothing, just work email." But his face had flushed slightly, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. I started noticing other things. He'd gotten a haircut at a new, more expensive place. He'd bought new cologne without mentioning it to me. He'd replaced his entire work wardrobe, claiming his old clothes were outdated. He'd started going to the gym before work, something he'd never done in all our years together. "You look good," I told him one morning as he was leaving, meaning it. The weight loss, the new clothes, the styled hair, it all made him look younger, more polished. "Thanks," he said, barely glancing at me as he grabbed his keys. There was no returned compliment. No playful moment. Just a distracted acknowledgement and the door closing behind him. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that people change, that stress manifests in different ways, that maybe he was just going through something and needed time to work through it. I told myself that jumping to conclusions was how good marriages fell apart, that trust was a choice you made every day, that I knew my husband and he would never, ever cheat on me. I told myself a lot of things. Around this time, I stopped wearing my Chanel No. 5. It wasn't a conscious decision at first. I'd been dealing with terrible migraines for months, and strong scents made them worse. My doctor suggested eliminating fragrances for a while to see if it helped. So I switched to unscented lotion, fragrance-free detergent, and I stopped wearing perfume altogether. Mark didn't notice. Or if he didn't say anything. I kept the bottle on my dresser, though, where it had always been. Sometimes I'd pick it up and smell the cap, remembering better times. Remembering his face when he'd first smelled it on me. Remembering feeling beautiful and desired and loved. The bottle sat there, mostly full, untouched, gathering a light film of dust. 3 months ago, things got worse. Mark started having work dinners that lasted until midnight. He'd come home smelling like whiskey and cigarettes, even though he didn't smoke. When I'd ask about his evening, his stories felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced them on the drive home. He stopped saying, "I love you" first. I'd say it when he left in the morning, when we ended phone calls, before we went to sleep, and he'd say it back. But automatically, reflexively, the way you say "bless you" when someone sneezes. No feeling behind it. Just words. Our friends started noticing too. At a barbecue at Rachel and Tom's house, Rachel pulled me aside while the guys were at the grill. "Is Mark okay?" she asked carefully. "He seems different." "He's just stressed about work," I said automatically, the lie coming easily now. "And are you okay?" She touched my arm, her eyes full of concern. "I'm fine. We're fine. Everything's fine." But nothing was fine, and we both knew it. I started having nightmares. In them, Mark would be walking away from me down a long hallway, and no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't catch up to him. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, reaching for him in the dark. Sometimes he'd be there, his back to me, the distance between us feeling like miles even though we were in the same bed. Sometimes he'd already be gone, up early for the gym, and I'd lie there alone in the gray morning light, wondering when exactly I'd lost my husband. Because I had lost him. I knew that now. I just didn't know to whom. The Tuesday that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. I went to work, sat through boring meetings, had lunch at my desk, counted down the hours until I could go home. Mark had texted me around noon saying he'd be home by 7, that maybe we could order Thai food and watch a movie. It felt like an olive branch, a small gesture toward normalcy, and I clung to it desperately. I left work early and stopped by the store to pick up his favorite beer and those chocolate-covered pretzels he liked. I got home by 6, tidied up the apartment, changed into comfortable clothes, and tried not to let myself hope too much that maybe tonight would be the night things started getting better. 7 o'clock came and went. At 7:30, I texted him. No response. By 8, I called. It went to voicemail. I ordered the Thai food anyway, leaving his portion in the containers so it wouldn't get cold too quickly. He finally walked through the door at 9:15. "Sorry," he said, setting his keys down. The meeting ran late. "You could have texted." I tried to keep the hurt out of my voice. "I know, I'm sorry, my phone died." But I could see the outline of it in his pocket, and when it buzzed a moment later, we both heard it. He ignored the notification. I ignored the lie. "Food's in the kitchen," I said quietly. "I can heat it up for you." "That'd be great, thanks." He loosened his tie and collapsed onto the couch with a heavy sigh. I went to the kitchen, my hands shaking slightly as I transferred his pad thai onto a plate and put it in the microwave. I took deep breaths, trying to calm the anxiety that had become my constant companion. I told myself we'd eat together. We'd talk. Maybe I'd find the courage to ask him what was really going on. Maybe he'd finally be honest with me. When the microwave beeped, I brought him his plate and sat down next to him on the couch, closer than I'd dared to sit in weeks. He was scrolling through his phone, but he put it down when I handed him the food. "Thank you," he said, and for just a moment his eyes met mine, and I saw something there. Guilt? Sadness? I couldn't tell. "Mark?" I started, not sure what I was going to say, just knowing I needed to say something. But he was already eating, already turning his attention to the TV that wasn't even on. The moment passed. We sat in silence while he ate. When he finished, he stood up to take his plate to the kitchen. As he passed behind the couch, I reached up and caught his hand, pulling him back gently. "Wait," I said. Just stay here for a minute. He looked down at me, confused, but he set the plate on the coffee table. I stood up, facing him, and without thinking, I moved closer, wrapping my arms around him. I needed to feel close to him. I needed to remember what that felt like. For a second, he was stiff, unresponsive. Then he slowly brought his arms around me, resting his chin on top of my head the way he used to. I pressed my face against his chest, breathing in, trying to find comfort in his familiar presence. And that's when I smelled it. Chanel No. 5, my perfume. The perfume I hadn't worn in months. The perfume that was sitting on my dresser, untouched, gathering dust. It was faint but unmistakable, clinging to his shirt, his neck, his skin. That distinctive scent I'd worn for years, that he'd loved so much, that he'd said smelled like home. It was on him, and it wasn't from me. I froze. My mind went blank, then raced, trying to find an explanation that made sense, that didn't mean what I knew it meant. Maybe I'd brushed against him this morning and some of the old scent had lingered on my clothes. But I hadn't worn it this morning. Or any morning in the past 3 months. Maybe someone at work had bumped into him. But what were the chances they'd be wearing the exact same perfume? And the scent was too strong for a casual brush by, too present. I pulled back slowly, looking up at his face. He was looking at the wall over my shoulder, his expression carefully neutral. "Mark?" My voice came out strangled, foreign to my own ears. "Hmm?" He still wasn't looking at me. "You." I swallowed hard. "You smell like my perfume." There. I'd said it. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Now he looked at me. His eyes widened slightly, just for a fraction of a second, and in that fraction of a second, I saw everything. The guilt. The panic. The scrambling for an explanation. "Do I?" He stepped back, putting distance between us, and brought his shirt collar up to his nose, sniffing. "I don't smell anything." "Mark." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "You smell like Chanel No. 5, my perfume. The perfume I haven't worn in months." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as his tell when he was stressed. "I have no idea. Maybe someone at the office?" "We had a client meeting today. The CEO is a woman. Maybe she..." "You hugged a client so close that you smell like her perfume hours later?" I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how it got there. His voice was rising now, defensive. "Maybe it's not even what you think it is. Maybe it's a different scent and you're just..." "I'm not crazy, Mark. I know my own perfume. I wore it every single day for years. You loved it. You told me it smelled like home." My voice broke on the last word. He said nothing. He just stood there, his jaw working, his hands clenched at his sides. "Say something," I whispered. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me there's an explanation. Tell me something." "I don't know what you want me to say." His voice was cold now, distant. "You're acting paranoid." "Paranoid?" The word came out sharp. "You come home reeking of my signature perfume, the perfume I stopped wearing months ago, and I'm paranoid for asking about it? You're making a huge deal out of nothing. Then explain it. Explain to me how nothing got on your clothes." "I can't explain it. I don't know. Maybe it's been on my suit for months and you're just now noticing. Maybe it's from the dry cleaner. Maybe..." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop lying to me." He stopped talking. We stared at each other across what felt like an enormous chasm, years of marriage and promises and trust crumbling beneath our feet. "Who is she?" I asked quietly. "There's no one." But his voice wavered. "Mark, please, don't do this. Don't make me feel crazy. Just tell me the truth." "I am telling you the truth." "You're lying." I was crying now, hot tears streaming down my face. "You've been lying for months. The late nights, the distance, the phone calls you take in private, the way you can barely look at me anymore. And now you come home smelling like another woman and you want me to believe it's nothing? You're overreacting. Don't you dare. My voice rose to a shout. Don't you dare tell me I'm overreacting. I'm your wife. I deserve the truth. Fine, he shouted back. You want the truth? The truth is you're suffocating me. You're always questioning everything I do, where I am, who I'm with. I can't breathe in this marriage anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually took a step backward. I'm suffocating you? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. I've given you nothing but space for months. I've asked for nothing. I've made excuses for you to everyone, including myself. I've watched you pull away from me piece by piece, and I've said nothing because I trusted you, because I loved you, because I believed in us. Maybe that's the problem. He said it quietly, but the words cut deep. Maybe you believed in something that wasn't real. I felt something inside me shatter. It was almost audible, like glass breaking. Everything I'd built my life on, every assumption I'd made about our marriage, about him, about us. It all came crashing down in that moment. Get out, I said. What? Get out. Go to her. Go to whoever she is. Just get out of my sight. This is my apartment too. I don't care. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. I was screaming now, months of pain and frustration and betrayal pouring out in waves. He grabbed his keys and his phone, and without another word, he walked out the door. When it closed behind him, the silence was deafening. I stood there in the middle of our living room, in the apartment we'd shared for 10 years, surrounded by the life we'd built together, and I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. Then my legs gave out, and I sank to the floor. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the Thai food to get cold. Long enough for the sun to set completely and the apartment to fill with darkness. Long enough for my tears to dry up, leaving me empty and hollow. When I could finally move again, I walked like a ghost through our apartment, seeing it with new eyes. The photos on the walls of our wedding, our vacations, our life together, they looked like pictures of strangers now. The couch where we'd spent countless evenings cuddled together. The kitchen where we'd cooked dinners side by side. The bedroom where we'd made love and made plans and made promises we apparently hadn't meant. I went to the bathroom and opened the cabinet where he kept his cologne. The new cologne. The one he'd started wearing a few months ago. I picked up the bottle and smelled it. It was nice, expensive, masculine. I set it down and opened the drawer where he kept his phone charger. Underneath it, I found a receipt. From a jewelry store I'd never heard of. From 3 weeks ago. For a necklace. An expensive necklace. He hadn't bought me jewelry in years, certainly not in the last 3 weeks. I went to the bedroom and opened his dresser drawers, not sure what I was looking for, but knowing I needed to look. In the back of his sock drawer, I found another receipt. This one from a hotel. Downtown. From 2 months ago. On a Tuesday night. A Tuesday when he'd told me he was working late. I sat on the bed, the receipts in my shaking hands, and I let myself acknowledge what I'd been avoiding for months. My husband was having an affair. And judging by the hotel receipt, the jewelry, the careful planning, it wasn't just a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was ongoing. It was deliberate. It was real. The woman wore my perfume. She knew it was my perfume. She had to know. And she wore it anyway. Maybe he bought it for her. Maybe she found it when she was going through his things. Maybe he told her it was his favorite scent, not mentioning that it was his favorite because his wife wore it. Or maybe, and this thought made me feel sick, maybe she wore it specifically to mark him, to stake her claim, to let me know in some subconscious way that he wasn't mine anymore, that he was hers. I looked at my wedding ring. The one Mark had slipped on my finger 12 years ago while promising to love me and honor me and forsake all others. The ring I'd twisted nervously on sleepless nights, trying to convince myself everything was fine. The ring that suddenly felt like a lie on my finger. I pulled it off. The tan line underneath was stark and obvious, a physical reminder of years of fidelity and commitment and love. I'd worn that ring every single day since our wedding. I'd never taken it off, not once, not even when I was cleaning or sleeping or showering. Now I set it on the nightstand and looked at my bare hand. It felt lighter, freer, wrong. My phone buzzed, a text from Mark. "I'm sorry. Can we talk about this tomorrow when we've both calmed down?" I stared at the message for a long time. The rage that had fueled my earlier outburst was gone, replaced by something colder and more certain. I typed back, "Who is she?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "There's no one, I swear." I took a photo of the hotel receipt and sent it to him. Another long pause. Then, "I can explain." "I don't want explanations. I want a name." No response. I waited 5 minutes, 10, 15. Finally, "Her name is Jessica. She works at the firm. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake." A mistake. As if mistakes left paper trails of hotel receipts and jewelry purchases. As if mistakes wore your wife's signature perfume. "How long?" I typed. "Does it matter?" "Yes." Another long pause. Then, 6 months. 6 months, half a year. All those late nights, all those work dinners, all those times I'd made excuses for him, defended him, believed in him. For 6 months, he'd been with someone else. "I want a divorce," I typed. My finger hovered over the send button. This was it. This was the moment. Once I sent this, everything would change. Our marriage, our future, our life together, it would all be over. I thought about the girl I'd been at that birthday party 13 years ago, laughing at his terrible karaoke, thinking I'd found something special. I thought about the woman I'd been on our wedding day, so sure we'd make it, so confident in our love. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been throughout our marriage, all the ways I'd shaped myself around him, around us. And I thought about who I wanted to be now. I pressed send. The response came quickly. "Please don't. We can work through this. I'll end it. We can go to counseling. Please." But I was already typing again. "You don't get to decide this anymore. You made your choice 6 months ago. I'm making mine now. I'll stay with Rachel tonight. You can sleep here. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps." I didn't wait for a response. I grabbed my phone charger, my laptop, and a change of clothes, and I stuffed them into a bag. I took my toothbrush from the bathroom. I took my work bag from the hallway. I walked past the photos on the walls without looking at them. On my way out, I passed the dresser where my bottle of Chanel No. 5 still sat, right where it had been for months, untouched. I picked it up and held it for a moment. This thing that had once meant something beautiful and had now become a symbol of betrayal. I threw it in the trash on my way out the door. Rachel answered on the second ring. "Hey, what's wrong?" Her voice shifted immediately, hearing something in my breathing. "Can I stay with you tonight?" "Of course. Are you okay? What happened?" "I'll tell you when I get there." I drove to Rachel and Tom's house in a daze, operating on autopilot, my hands steady on the wheel even though everything inside me was shaking. When I pulled into their driveway, Rachel was already on the front porch waiting. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. That's when I started crying again. Really crying. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and primal and broken. She held me there on her front porch while I fell apart, and she didn't ask questions, didn't say anything. Just held me while I grieved the death of my marriage. Eventually, she led me inside. Tom appeared long enough to hug me wordlessly and then disappeared upstairs to give us privacy. Rachel made tea that I didn't drink and sat next to me on the couch while I told her everything. The perfume, the confrontation, the receipts, the confession, the divorce. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. I knew something was wrong. She finally said, "I should have said something sooner. It wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe not, but you shouldn't have had to go through this alone." "I'm not alone now," I said. And I meant it. She set me up in their guest room with fresh sheets and extra blankets. I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, my phone next to me on the nightstand. Notifications from Mark coming in every few minutes. I'm so sorry. Please talk to me. I love you. It was a mistake. I want to fix this. Please. I turned my phone off. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Rachel had already left for her office, but Tom was working from home. He made me coffee and scrambled eggs and didn't try to talk about anything heavy. We watched mindless morning TV while I tried to figure out what came next. I called a divorce lawyer. I had a consultation scheduled for Thursday. I called my sister, who lived 3 states away, and told her what happened. She offered to come stay with me. I told her not yet, but maybe soon. I turned my phone back on and found 37 messages from Mark. I didn't read them. I blocked his number. Then I called the apartment and used the landline we never used, knowing he was probably at work but needing to leave a message. Mark, it's me. I'm coming by at lunch to get more of my things. I'd prefer if you weren't there. I've contacted a lawyer. You should probably do the same. We can communicate through them going forward. My voice was steady, calm. I barely recognized it. I went back to the apartment during my lunch break like I said I would. He'd honored my request to not be there. The space felt different now, contaminated somehow. I moved quickly, gathering clothes, toiletries, my laptop, important documents, photos of my family that didn't include him. As I was leaving, I passed the trash can where I'd thrown my perfume bottle last night. I paused, then bent down and pulled it out. The bottle was still intact, the liquid inside still catching the light. I looked at it for a long moment. This thing that had meant love and memory and now meant pain and betrayal. Then I unscrewed the cap, walked to the bathroom, and poured it down the sink. All of it. Every drop. I watched the liquid swirl down the drain until the bottle was empty. Then I set the empty bottle on the bathroom counter where he'd see it and walked out. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. 6 months of paperwork and lawyers and dividing up a life we'd spent 12 years building. 6 months of rage and grief and slowly, painfully acceptance. I learned more about Jessica during those months than I ever wanted to know. She was 28, 5 years younger than me. She'd started at his firm 9 months ago. They'd met at a company happy hour. According to Mark's carefully worded statements through his lawyer, the affair had started shortly after, just like he'd said. What he hadn't said was that he'd told her he loved her, that they'd talked about a future together, that he'd promised to leave me. The perfume, it turned out, had been his gift to her. He'd bought her the same bottle I'd had, told her it was his favorite scent, never mentioned it was what his wife wore. When she found out through some mutual connection, she'd confronted him. His solution, apparently, was to ask her not to wear it around him. She wore it anyway. And that night, the night everything fell apart, she'd done more than just wear it. According to what I pieced together later, she'd practically bathed in it before their evening meeting, making sure he'd smell like it when he came home. Making sure I'd know. She wanted me to find out. She was tired of being the secret. In a twisted way, I should probably thank her. If she hadn't worn my perfume that night, I might still be living in ignorant misery, wondering why my husband didn't love me anymore, never knowing the truth. Instead, she forced the truth into the open, and it destroyed everything. Mark tried to reconcile during the divorce proceedings. He sent flowers to Rachel's house. He showed up at my office. He sent emails I didn't read. According to mutual friends, he and Jessica had broken up shortly after our separation. He claimed he wanted to work things out, that he'd made a terrible mistake, that he still loved me. I didn't believe him. And more than that, I didn't care. Because somewhere in those 6 months of pain and lawyers and paperwork, I realized something. I didn't want him back. Not because I was too hurt or too angry, though I was both those things, but because I didn't recognize the man he'd become. Or maybe I'd never really known him at all. The man I'd married wouldn't have lied to my face for 6 months. Wouldn't have made me doubt my own perceptions and instincts. Wouldn't have come home smelling like another woman and told me I was crazy for noticing. That man was gone, if he'd ever existed at all. I signed the divorce papers on a Tuesday. Not at Romano's, obviously, but in a sterile office with fluorescent lights and uncomfortable chairs. Mark sat across from me, looking older somehow, tired. He tried to catch my eye, but I kept my gaze on the papers in front of me. When it was done, when we'd both signed and initialed and agreed to the dissolution of our marriage, he tried one more time. "I really am sorry," he said quietly. "For all of it." I looked at him then, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no love, no regret. Just a distant sadness for the girl I'd been. The one who'd believed in fairy tales and happily ever afters. "I know you are," I said, "but sorry doesn't fix it." Then I walked out of that office into the spring sunshine, and I took a deep breath of air that didn't smell like Chanel No. 5 or lies or lost love. It just smelled like possibility. That was 8 months ago. I'm writing this now from my new apartment, a one-bedroom in a different neighborhood with better light and no memories. Rachel helped me move in, and Tom assembled all my furniture. My sister flew in for a weekend and helped me paint the walls a color I chose, that Mark had no opinion on. I got a promotion at work. I started taking pottery classes. I adopted a cat named Fig, who sleeps on my chest and purrs like an engine. I went on a few dates that went nowhere, and I was okay with that. I started therapy. I joined a book club. I learned to be alone without being lonely. And I bought new perfume. Not Chanel No. 5. Never again Chanel No. 5. Something different.